Okay. Hey, it's James Arnold Taylor, and I'm going to run through these questions for you, and I'll read the questions, and then I'll answer them myself. And if you like, you can take my asking the questions out and put you in, or you can just simply go through them and have me do it and play it the way you want, if you're going to use this audio, that is. Okay, here we go. Question number 1. James, how much do you want to run screaming, silently, of course, to save your voice, when you're out for a nice dinner with your family only to find you're randomly seated next to a semi-rabid Star Wars fan? Well, of course you're referring to when we sat down. We go to this thing while we were in Star Wars weekends, and it was the one day off I have during Star Wars weekends away from my regular voice work and the weekend events at Disney. And we decided to do this little safari. And lo and behold, there you were with your family. And that was fine. It was, it's part of the whole thing. The best thing about going to Star Wars weekends or conventions and things for that matter is that I, James Arnold Taylor, lowly voice actor, actually get to be somewhat of a celebrity and a rock star at it, and people recognize me. And that's always nice when people actually recognize me and recognize me for work that they like. So, I appreciate your concern on that. And, yeah, sure, it was one of those days where I thought, okay, I won't have to talk about Star Wars. It is a very strange world to live in now that I never could have imagined growing up, that I would actually have to say and talk about Star Wars, say Star Wars pretty much every day of my life for the last 11, 12 years and talk about it in some sense to someone. And it gives me a very, very small window into the world of George Lucas and what he has had to deal with his entire, the last, 35, 40 years. So, yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Again, it's a good thing to be associated with. Having the name James Taylor has also been one of those things in my life that has always been something that comes up, whether I'm at the store and somebody doesn't know who I am and they say, oh, James Taylor, I bet you've seen Fire and you've seen Rain, and I go through my whole James Taylor spiel because obviously there's a singer named James Taylor, very famous, and I've had to deal with that. So, I get used to it. But the thing is when you're in showbiz and you want to be, let's be honest, all people in showbiz that are in front of the camera or in front of the microphone want to be recognized to some degree and want to have people recognize their work and appreciate it and talk about it. So you have to be able to be ready for that. It's a very long answer to your very first question. This gives you a sense of how I'm going to be with the rest of them. Question number 2. Your perspective of Star Wars is unique. You probably have as many kid fans as adult fans. Well, thank you. Clone Wars fans as movie fans. How do you find you relate to that? Well, I find that the Clone Wars fans are really fantastic. I love the fact that you have these generations of fans that appreciate Star Wars for different reasons. I think that it's a wonderful thing what Clone Wars has done, and I am so blessed to be a part of that. And I love the fact that I can now go anywhere with my 8-year-old and go up to any one of her friends and say, do you know Star Wars? And they say, yes. Do you know Obi-Wan Kenobi? And they say, yes. And they instantly hear it from my voice as Obi-Wan Kenobi and then say, well, do you ever watch Clone Wars? And then they shake their heads nervously, and then I say, that every time Obi-Wan Kenobi talks, I talk as well. And then their eyes kind of bug out and they so that's a great thing. But then it's also fun I was just at dinner the other night and, a man my age, if not older, came up and said how much he loves Obi-Wan and Clone Wars, and so that's a great thing. It's a beautiful thing that this whole movie, what started as a simple tale many years ago, a long time ago, in a movie theater far, far away, has become this thing that is now just a part of the zeitgeist. It's part of our world, and it's what we live and breathe. And so to have that in between is really great. And it's been great being the host of so many Star Wars events, from Celebration to Star Wars Weekends to other conventions throughout the land and the world. and to be able to be associated with Star Wars, not just Clone Wars, but Star Wars, having voiced Obi-Wan more than any other person as well, is very great and cool and a great honor, and not just in Clone Wars, but in other things. So it is certainly a part of my life. It is a part of my day-to-day. It's a part of my being now, and I'm very blessed to have that. So I think it's fantastic. Question number 3. Is there a moment that defines the best part of working on the Clone Wars? Yeah, a moment that defines the best part of working on the Clone Wars. I would have to say when we're all in the room together, being at premieres together, doing Star Wars weekends and things like that with my family now, from Ashley Eckstein to Matt Lanter to D. Bradley Baker and Tom Kane, all these amazing performers. We built a family, and I've said it before in interviews, especially since Clone Wars has gone away, that we all felt the weight of the show leaving more than any other show we'd ever worked on, and that's because it was really something special. We all did it as a labor of love. We all did it because we loved Star Wars, and we wanted to be involved with it. It was not just another job. So the best part of working on it, a moment that defines it, was seeing Dave Filoni saying, "Okay, there's a new script. Here we go," and go, take one. That's the best part of it. Question number 4. Do you have a favorite Obi-Wan saying? Is there anything particularly wise you learned from Obi-Wan or any of the other Clone Wars characters? Favorite Obi-Wan saying? I get asked questions like that a lot. Do I have a favorite line or a favorite part? And obviously, I have a bad feeling about this. It's something that I've said probably more than most other characters in the Star Wars universe, and especially as Obi-Wan in the Clone Wars. And I think that's a great one because it always gets a laugh. It sums things up well. I reverse it sometimes. I have a good feeling about this, and so there's that. But I think one of the lines that has really stuck with people over this last season was when Obi-Wan is talking to Satine's sister and says, "I'm so sorry." It sums up a lot. It gives me a little goosebumps now because the character of Satine, and Anna Graves, the fantastic voice actress that provided her voice for the show, as well as other voices on the show, she's great. It was a big part of that, and I thought it was such a great character because it brought Obi-Wan into a different realm and into a different place for fans. I think that as much as people might not want to see it, Star Wars there's as big of a fan base of women as there are men, and a lot of that is due to, yes, the love story between Padme and Anakin, but now also with Satine and Obi-Wan and the thoughts of what could have been and what were maybe at some point. And there's a beautiful storyline there. There's really neat stuff, and it's something to contemplate as an actor, and it's certainly something that as far as what did I learn, I learned great new ways of exploring bits of dialogue with Obi-Wan and ways to perform them. The show brought each of us, and D. Bradley Baker has said this as well, to different planes of our acting, and it allowed us to be performers in new ways than doing other animated things or voiceover. So it was a beautiful learning experience in that. Question number 5. I've always enjoyed the interplay between Obi-Wan and Ventress. How did that relationship come about? Well, look at that. So we go from Satine to Ventress. Ventress, oh my dear Ventress. I remember the first session and the first scene I ever did for Star Wars The Clone Wars, the current version of the show, not the original micro-series, which I was the voice of Obi-Wan in, and Ventress was in that as well. But for the current version, the first scene I did was with Nika Futterman, the fantastic Nika Futterman, who did the voice of Ventress in a way unlike anybody else could have ever done. She was fantastic, and she just lived and breathed the character when she was it. And from that very first recording session, she was that. And her and I had a history together of working on many different things where we played brother and sister, we played characters that were interested in each other, as in other cartoons that we did, and we've played just regular, just funny voices with each other. So for this, it was like we get to really fine-tune our voices, and she had that great kind of Eartha Kitt kind of vibe to it, and the evil that dripped, and the sarcasm, and just the fun that she was able to embody with that character right off the bat. So many of us kind of grew into our characters throughout the series. If you watch the Clone Wars film, which was what the scene I'm referring to is in, because they took the first 3 or 4 episodes we did of Clone Wars and made them into the movie. That was George's vision. He saw what was happening. He said, this should be a movie. You watch Nika's performance as Ventress right from the beginning. It is consistent with what she is doing at the end. She knew that character, and so it really raised the bar for me. And I was like, okay, we're in it. She's doing it. This is great. And that relationship, I just love the fact I don't know all of the history between what George Lucas and Dave Filoni were thinking with the character. But there was certainly a lot of sass and a lot of back and forth. And it was not only comic relief at times, but it was just that classic banter between villain and good guy, yet the twist being that the villain was a femme fatale, and that there was this great play there. And I think Obi-Wan always believed that Ventress was able to be turned, and he was never going to stop trying. Obi-Wan is a purist. Obi-Wan is a true believer, and he, again, my Obi-Wan Kenobi, did not believe for a second that Anakin would ever turn to the dark side. And so I believe he believed strongly in the Force and what it could do and how it could change lives. And so I think he still had faith and hope in Ventress. And, one never knows, because we don't know the fate of Ventress now, do we? Question number 6. During your show, Talking to Myself, that's my one-man stage show, you share your difficult experience of losing your voice and developing a chronic illness. It was deeply moving, thank you, and I had to wipe away smudged mascara, and very generous of you. And it was also profoundly uplifting. What behooved you to share that experience? Well, thank you very much. As a performer, I realize you kind of make it a choice. You can be very private in your life, or you can be very public in your life. And I've made the decision early on to share things that can help people. And as a voice actor, you are not an on-camera actor that gets all of this accolades for your work. You get very devoted people that know the craft, that appreciate the craft, that come after you, that seek you out to know about you. And with my show, Talking to Myself, I really wanted to open the world of voiceover up to a wider audience. And in that, I felt that there was a need to share this very real experience that happened to me throughout my life over the course of the last 8 to 10 years. There's been health issues and issues that brought me to a place of better understanding of myself, better understanding of life, better understanding of how to be a parent, how to be a friend, how to be someone that takes care of themselves. And one of them was a very big moment in my life, which was being exposed to toxic mold, black mold, in a house that my wife and I had bought to try and do the right thing when we were adopting our daughter from China, and that was to start a home and to build this place up, and we got ripped off. It was a terrible situation, and I touch on it very briefly in the show, but it was 2.5 years of just really, really awful dealing with lawsuits and people that had no conscience or care for others except to make a buck, and built and sold a shoddy house to people that were honestly saying, we're doing this because we're starting a family and we want a nice home, and we were ripped off, to put it well, and we lost tons of money and money that I have still not recouped in my life and in my career. That's the other thing about being a voice actor is people think that, if these guys sit in little padded rooms, talk to themselves, and make millions and millions of dollars. That is not the truth. We make a living. We make a good living. We make a better living than most people, but we do not make the money that celebrities make, and we are not recognized for it. And Hollywood does not want to recognize it for us for it, because if they do, they have to pay us the money that they pay the bigger stars. And so voice actors are always working. Why? Because if we don't, then we cannot maintain the lifestyle that we have grown accustomed to by having those little bits and pieces of moments that bring you accolades and bits and pieces of money that is better than what other people make. That's a very long way around, but it's true. And we are very blessed, very fortunate. I am a very blessed and fortunate person to live and breathe the life that I do, and it is a beautiful one, and I'm very grateful for it, and I thank God for it every day of my life. But that is not to say that it comes easy and that you're just handed over things. So there was a great loss in that, not just financially, but I lost from this house with toxic mold. I'm giving you a very long explanation, but hopefully this is a in-depth. I'm in the mood to give you an in-depth interview. From this black toxic mold, I began to have what I thought was cold symptoms. But they lasted for months and months, and my voice was just deteriorating. And woke up one day and just found I could no longer speak. And I went to the doctor. It was February 13th, 2005. And I went to a throat specialist, a guy that I had seen, one of these guys that, worked on everybody from Frank Sinatra to Seal and Whitney Houston and, the biggest and the best singers in the world, the tenors. And this guy was my throat doctor. And he looked in my throat and said, yuck. He said, yeah, you've got a bad infection. You've got just really bad candida growing in your throat and in your system, and it needs to come out. You need to fix it. And the one thing you need to do is you need to stop talking. And this could not have come at a worse time. My career was in full thrust. I had just got the job of voicing Fred Flintstone and been doing it for about 6 months to a year at this point. Leonardo the Ninja Turtle, though, we were in the process of recording that TMNT. Johnny Test was just starting. I had just started doing the voice of Captain Jack Sparrow, which is the one voice I lost during that time. I managed to keep all my other voices, but Disney recast me during that time, and I have not since been the voice of Jack Sparrow for any of their projects. I've done Johnny Depp's voice for other things in the past, or since then, I should say, the Mad Hatter, Willy Wonka, and the like. But yes, I am very sad to have lost that, and that was due to that time period when I lost my voice. But thankfully, I did not lose the other jobs at the time. I managed somehow, by the grace of God, to get by. And I was really challenged. I changed everything in my life. I went on a very strict vegan macrobiotic diet. I found that, which is a diet they use for people that have cancer and are very ill. I used it for clearing my system of the candida and the mold in my system. And the other thing that mold does is it gives you brain fog. It gives you memory loss. It gives you anxiety, panic, depression. And it is a very difficult thing to clear out of your system, and it took many years to do it. But I was able to get my voice back into shape by working with a vocal coach. His name's Gary Katona, GaryKatona.com, Katona, Katona. Wonderful man, and showed me different ways of using my voice and helped me to do that. And I still use those things today, but I am also still to this day struck with immune disorders, environmental issues, and vocal issues that I will always have from that experience. And I felt I had to share that with people, that it's who I am. And the show was kind of my way of saying, get back on the horse and do it, and show that you can do it with 3/4 of what you had before. And my voice is stronger than it has ever been because of the techniques I use, but it's not as strong. I can listen back to things that I did before I got sick. And a few years earlier, prior to that, I had had a bout with pneumonia from a surgery I was having that was supposed to be an outpatient surgery for a kidney stone, and I ended up being in the hospital for 3 days and acquired pneumonia, and that compromised my lungs. So between that and then the toxic mold that happened a few years later, I don't have the voice that I had when I was in my 20s, and I listened to things that I recorded back then, and I had more strength to it. But I'm stronger now because I understand it better, and that's I'm giving you a very long explanation, but that is why I want to share. I want people to know. I think it's important for there to be boundaries and walls with celebrities and be able to put up, some wall of sorts to say, this is my private life with my family, and these are the parts I choose to not share with you. But I have other parts that I do want to share with you. And in those, I'm going to share them, and I'm going to hope that you take from those and benefit from those. Because it is also my job as somebody that is a person of faith. I'm a Christian, and I believe that my faith calls me to help others, and if I can help others learn from my experiences in life, well, then that's a good thing. And so that's why I do it. And that's also, I find that in my show, it's, in its fullest form, at Disney it's about 30 minutes, but in its fullest form, it is about 80 minutes. And in my show, Talking to Myself, I run through all these voices, over 200 voices, and I do all these little vocal acrobatics, and I talk about the life of a voice actor. And I spend the last 5 minutes of the show talking about losing my voice and rebuilding it and pursuing your dreams. And it's amazing that thousands of people say to me, the last few minutes of that show, that's what it was for me. That's what did it for me. And thank you. And so I think, well, how can I not? How can I not talk about it then? So, an extremely long answer, but you're very good. Look at this. You're probing better than Barbara Walters would. I love it. Now, okay, question number 7. Your daughter had an interesting insight about episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Can you share that story with us? So we were all sitting, having our dinner, or it was a dinner, right? Or late lunch dinner. I don't know what it would be. And we were talking about Return of the Jedi, and Lydia, my daughter, shared that she thought that it was that Darth Vader turns to good, which, he does, but she thought it was saying Return of the Jedi means he was a bad guy, and he is returning to the Jedi code and becoming a Jedi again, which, in a sense, that's what he does by the end. But I thought that was fantastic, and I think we all thought that was great and a lot of fun, and and the innocence of a child and the naivete of someone that hasn't seen that movie yet. She's seen Star Wars: A New Hope. She has not seen any of the other ones. She's seen some of the Clone Wars. She's 8, and so there's some things that are very heavy to her. She still cries watching Finding Nemo and the Little Mermaid, so, showing Darth Vader die at the end of Return of the Jedi is something that I want to prepare her for, especially because she knows Anakin, because she, and she knows Matt Lanter as well, who's Anakin to her, and she calls him Anakin, and she loves that character, and it's all for us, it's just Star Wars, and but it's to a 7, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, it's a big deal. So I want to share that with her when she's ready for it. Speaking of your daughter, you must be the best dad for bedtime stories. Do you read them with various voices, and do the two of you have any favorites? Yes. We are currently going through all of the Chronicles of Narnia. We were on Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and we read them in the original order that they were written by C.S. Lewis. I'm a huge C.S. Lewis fan and a Tolkien fan, and so we are reading those right now, and I am put through the paces to come up with different voices for each character. My wife reads along and does Lucy and the other, and the witch and the White Witch and all of the other various female voices. And although I'm always happy to do them, and then I come up with all the others, and it's a great test of my ability to come up with various British accents. I can't help but do the characters as Brits most of the time, and so I tend to do that. But yes, you've got your narrator, and then you've got Prince Caspian and Edmund doing his, thing, and all the various Drinian, and then you have Aslan, all the different characters. And so yes, and even that, or Paddington. We have all these old books that were my wife's from when she was my daughter's age, and they are Paddington the Bear books, and they're the classic animation and the classic stories, and they're just so great, and so we read those, and again we do those with British accents, and I've done a little voice for Paddington, that's a little bear that I've come up with, that I feel, I don't know, and so we have great fun with that, as well as other things. I mean, when from the very beginning we have always read to her, and read little books from Goodnight Moon to again Paddington and beyond, and the Boynton books. What is it, Susan Boynton, that does all those great little animals, and we have the Going to Bed book, and Pajama Time, and Dr. Seuss. We read lots and lots of Dr. Seuss. And of course, when you read Dr. Seuss, you have to read it with an accent that makes sense, doesn't it? Yes. So, green eggs and ham, that's Sam I am, that's Sam I am, I do not like that Sam I am.
Do you like green eggs and ham?
No, I do not like green eggs and ham. So I always have fun coming up with voices with her. So it is a lot of fun. And I don't think she realizes that most people don't get to have a voice actor read bedtime stories to them. But, it's just dada. That's all. So question number 9. You run your own company. Have you always been an entrepreneur? Well, I guess I have. I never thought of myself that way, but I have many friends. In fact, I was just on the phone with a friend yesterday or the day before who was saying that he thinks of me as one of the best entrepreneurs out there, and I thought that was very kind. I have, from the day I started, back at 15, I started working when I was about 10 years old. My first job was sweeping up. I grew up in the town of Santa Barbara in California, and I grew up more specifically in the college community where UCSB is, of Isla Vista, which is a very rough place for a kid to grow up, because it's a party town, and you end up seeing lots of things that you shouldn't see as a little kid. And I was came from a divorced family, and was kind of on my own from a very young age, left to my own devices. My mom was working, and my brother and sister were considerably older than me. And so I found ways of providing food and things for myself in that I went and got jobs. So I found that the local burger joint, which is now a chain, it was called the Hamburger Habit, and they have a chain of them here in Santa Barbara and Los Angeles. And so I would go to the Habit in the morning, and I would sweep up their outside dining area and wipe the tables down and such, me and a friend of mine. And as payment, they would make a burger for us, or breakfast, or whatever. They'd make us a meal. And then later in the day, I would go over and sweep up, or just, maybe an hour later, I don't know, because I would get lunch and such there. But I would go to the pizza place that didn't open until like 11, so that's what it was. And I would sweep up there and clean up there. And payment, again, because they couldn't pay us money, because we were 10 years old, they would pay us in food. So I would get a pizza, and that would be my lunch or my dinner, or whatever, and a slice of pizza, I should say. So they'd give us a slice of pizza and a Coke. And so from the beginning, yes, I was working on things. And then when I was 16, I got into stand-up comedy and then radio. At 17, I started by sweeping up and went to the local radio station, a local rock station, classic rock station. And by the time I was, within 3 months, I had a job there that was paying me. But I would sweep up and I would hand bumper stickers out at concerts and stuff. And I would go into the production room at night and teach myself all of the equipment, the multi-track recorders and the reel-to-reels and the records and all of that. And then I figured out I would watch the DJs. The DJs that were there are still friends of mine to this day, and most are successful voice actors now or still successful radio personalities. And I would watch them do their shows, and I watched and learned. And to me, that's been the biggest thing as to how to learn, is to watch and learn. And so I watched them, and I taught myself, and eventually one night, it's really like out of a movie. The program director knew I was doing this because I would give him tapes of my shows that I made in the production room, my fake shows. And so one night, the overnight jock couldn't make it for whatever reason. And it was a classic rock station in the 80s, so I'm sure he was out somewhere and maybe had a few too many, but didn't show up. And so they called me at about 11:30 at night and said, can you make it to the station and do a show? And the rest is, as they say, history. I did a show there, and then eventually, within a short period of time, I was the overnight DJ from midnight to 6 in the morning, and then I would prep everything for the morning show the next day, and I also wrote copy. I found with all my voices and stuff, I liked telling stories and creating characters, and so I started being the copywriter and then the production director for the radio station within a short amount of time, and wrote and produced and voiced all of the commercials that they did. And it was really just a great experience, and it got me a better understanding of my voice and what I could do with it, and microphones and techniques, and I became a real tech head from that. And ever since then, I've built recording studios in my home and had gear and learned it all, and now it's all digital, but it used to be back then grease pencil on tape and razor blades to cut the tape and splice it and stuff. So I was a master at that by the end of that, and then I mastered this digital recording and recorded bands on the side and as a hobby, and friends' music, and love producing things. I worked in radio as a writer, producer, voice performer before I got into strict voice acting, and I wrote and produced over 8,000 comedy bits for a Premier Radio Networks, which is a radio syndicator, and in that I did, I think, probably more radio comedy than any one person had ever achieved, and it was a great thing. My comedy went out from everybody from Rick Dees to Howard Stern and all in between. Stations across the country, 3,000 stations across the country would subscribe to this service, and they would get back at the beginning it was a reel-to-reel tape, and then it became CDs, and now it's downloads of these comedy bits, and they're much like comedy bits you would find on Saturday Night Live that are the fake commercials and little sketches and things, fake phone calls to the station, and it's stuff that the DJ would use and take credit for as, just parts of their morning show, the wacky morning shows. And so I did that for almost 13 years, and then and during that time I was building my voiceover career as well, and then eventually left that to go and move and do this, and it was great. My big send-off at Premier Radio was at their company Christmas party, and my friend Casey Kasem gave a intro speech for me, and really said some wonderful things about me because he and I had begun working on shows together, Scooby-Doo and stuff, and so my send-off into the world of voiceover and away from radio production was by Casey Kasem, so that was a great honor, and it was very cool. So, very long way around. Yes, I do think of myself, I guess, as an entrepreneur because I feel like there is ideas to be made and things to do, and I'm always writing. I'm writing books. I just finished my first book, and it should be out soon. I've been in the process of writing a second and a third book, and I'm working on several scripts for TV shows and movies, and there's a whole thing about cast your nets, they say in Proverbs, cast them out wide and in the evening, and hopefully by the morning you have some returns. And so I do my best to do as much as I can and get it out there in different ways and in ways that make sense for me and my career and what I can do and what my abilities say that I can do. And hopefully some of them come back and return good things. And that's what I would say to people. Find what you're good at and do it and pursue it and love it and stick to it. And then finally, question number 10, and we are having so much fun, I'm sorry, and I'm going on and on. What upcoming projects can you share with us? Well, being a voice actor, you can usually share very little because the fact is that you you sign these NDAs, these non-disclosure agreements, and it says that you can't talk about things. So what can I share that I'm working on? Well, we have completed the main production of the film Ratchet and Clank that will be coming out in 2015. That'll be a 3D animated CGI film. It'll be beautiful and wonderful. It's based on the very, very, very popular Ratchet and Clank video game series that I have been blessed to be the voice of Ratchet for the last 11 years on, I believe, 14 different titles of the game. And the film will be coming out in 2015. And of course, I can't say anything about the film other than it is written by T.J. Fixman, who is a fantastic writer who wrote the last many different versions of the video games, and it is true to form of the characters, and it is a great telling of these characters, and I think it's a lot of fun, and I hope and pray that it comes out at a good point in 2015 as to not compete with things like Star Wars and Star Trek and insert any other big-name box office hit, so it can be recognized as what it is, because I really hope that it's good, and it's quite a feat for a voice actor to say that they have the title character in a major motion picture. And I have been very fortunate to have not necessarily the title character, but the main character of a lead character in several motion pictures that have come out, from TMNT being Leonardo the Ninja Turtle to being Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Clone Wars, and now to be Ratchet in Ratchet and Clank, and that's why I say the title character. Pretty great. So I've been very blessed as a voice actor in that. So we've got that. Hulk, Agents of Smash, I'm the leader, which is great because I get to play a villain. Yes, Hulk. And now I get to actually talk about it. For the last year, I've not been able to talk about it, but since the show is on the air, I can actually talk about that. There's other little projects here and there that I'm talking about, or that I can't really talk about. But one that also was just announced recently, the Lego Marvel game. I'm Spider-Man in that. I'm also some other characters, but I have not been given permission to say that. So watch the game, play the game, and find me in there if you can. But I am Spider-Man in that, which is awesome. This is my 4th or 5th time that I've got to voice Spider-Man, which is a great honor. I love that character, one of my favorite characters of all time. And some other characters and other things coming up soon. But the biggest question everybody asks is Rebels. Here's what I can say about Rebels. I don't know anything about it. And please, 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 let the folks at Disney and Lucasfilm know that if Obi-Wan is to make an appearance on it, you want it to be James Arnold Taylor. But that's about all I can say. Thank you so much for your time. It has been a true honor and pleasure, and may the Force be with you always.